everyone, I'm Pam Spaccarotella, and welcome back to Driver Stories. Today, I'm excited to chat with Bernard Wells, one of our amazing driver trainers. Bernard has 37 years of experience in the trucking industry. He's been at LGT for almost 10 years now. In this episode, we'll discuss his journey from his early days in driving school to training the next generation of drivers. He has some great advice, so let's get started.
I'm ready. Take one.
Take one. All right. So, Bernard, um,
Yes.
tell us about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the state of Texas in the city of Houston. Initially, until I was ninth grade, I moved to San Diego, California, and finished high school. I grew up between Houston and San Diego.
And if I remember right, you lived with your dad in San Diego and your brother. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We were um, what do you call a bachelor, a male bachelor pad. My brother and my dad.
Uh-huh. And when you graduated from high school, did you start truck driving then, or did you do something else for a while?
No, I actually we have a family restaurant, a barbecue restaurant, and I stayed on with that as a manager initially out of high school, and then I wanted to expand my knowledge of cooking by joining the military, and I was gonna try to join the military and become a chef, but because I had knee surgery right in my senior year of high school, and back then they still inserted screws in your knee to make corrections to your ligaments. And I had screws in my knee, so they would not let me in the military. So I just, at that point, I didn't know what to do besides working at the restaurant, but I knew I didn't want to just work there. It wasn't bringing in enough money. So after that, that's when I decided to get into trucking.
So, did you tell your dad you wanted to be a truck driver?
No, at the time, it was something. I saw a commercial. I saw a commercial on TV, and it reminded me when I was growing up in Houston. One of our neighbors was a truck driver. He was the owner operator. He had his own truck, and he used to bring his truck on the street when he came home. And when I saw the commercial, it just reminded me how I admired him, his big truck and how nice he kept it. And so I was like, this might be something I can get into. So that's when I called them and man, and everything went from there. I took off.
Huh. So you're in San Diego and you call a truck driving school in Texas?
Yep. They had this program where you had to go through this big booklet before you even went to the school itself to learn how to drive the truck. You had to go through this big booklet. And so I ended up moving back to Houston in the process of going through this book because the course, once you got finished with the book, it was in Houston. I mean, it was actually in Waco. But so I just moved back and in expectation of going to this course, and I ended up moving back permanently after that. Once I moved back and went through truck driving school, um, yeah, I was here for good.
Wow. So, what was truck driving school like? Was it 4 weeks, 6 weeks? What was it like?
It was 21 days. It was a 21-day course, and they had built a school, a compound on an abandoned airport, so they used the runways as part of their course. So, and they put all the students up in hotels, and you just stayed there for 21 days. It was a good experience.
Wow. That's so when I was in the Air Force, right? I'm sorry, I'm digressing, but
Uh-huh.
they
Yeah.
had they had, you could become an officer in the Air Force by going to college, or you could go to
Uh-huh.
ROTC. You go to the academy or the ROTC, or that you could be what we called a 90-day wonder. so,
Oh,
so you're a 21-day wonder. That's what you are.
okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. It was a real wonderful experience. I got to meet some great people, and some people fall out, and other people they encourage each other to keep going because certain parts of the course is difficult, especially backing, and that's really where most of our class fell off is doing the backing process. But um, it just to bond with people that made it from different levels of the training, just like going through a SEAL training, and people falling off, and you trying to keep each other lifted up, and it was that type of experience. But I enjoyed it. I will remember that for the rest of my life.
So after you got done with
Yeah.
truck driving school, then what was your first job?
My first job was in Mobile, Alabama. It's a trucking company called Pool Truck Line, which I don't think they're no longer in business. They had cab overs, if you remember those.
Yeah.
It was a cab over, and and I was 21 years old. It's my first job. As soon as I turned 21, they accepted my application, so I ended up getting my first job when I turned 21, and it was out of Mobile. They had their own 3 weeks course that I had to take. Um, Once I got hired on with them, and it was an experience too as well. Uh, but yeah, that was my first company. I started off with flatbeds and learning how to torp and tie loads down and all of that, which I didn't care for very much.
Uh-huh.
So
A- And how long were you there?
I stayed with them a year. I stayed with them a year. I I learned early on not to be quick to jump from job to job. So I said I'm gonna at least stay with these guys a year. They gave me the opportunity to get exposed to the industry, and I at least owe them that. But it didn't take very long. I realized that type of work wasn't for me, but I still wanted to commit myself to them for a year.
Yeah. So what'd you do after that? Did you
I end
go
up
to
I end up
tankers?
going and getting a no, I end up getting a local job making store deliveries. Kind of like Cisco, the type of work
Oh yeah.
Cisco does.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did that. I did that for like 6, 7 years, and
Wow.
that was a good, yeah, it was a good job. Helped
Was
me
it
stay fit because
yeah? Was it a dry van or what was it?
it was a combination of a dry van. They had a refrigerated half, and then they had the uh dry half for the dry goods like canned goods, chips, and things that uh trays, delivery trays, wrapping stuff like that was all dry, and then they had a wall, and on the other side of the wall was everything they needed to keep frozen, like the bread. Subway bread is kept frozen. Subway was our biggest customer at the time, so our biggest account. So we delivered a lot of Subway bread, Subway meat, Subway chips, and everything else you see in Subway. we carried
And
it.
did you like being local then? You like being home every night
Yes,
or you did?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
I loved it being home every night because I had kids. My kids were pretty young at the time, so I was able to spend time with them, and
Uh-huh.
that was a win-win for me. And I was making good money too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
fast forward to um your first tanker job. When was your first tanker job?
My first tanker job was actually back in San Diego. I ended up moving back to San Diego, and
Okay.
I got on with a um, um, cement cement mixing company. They deliver cement, build pools, streets, stuff like that. Ready mix, they call them ready mix. And
Okay.
I used to. My job was to pull doubles, which were tankers, to Long Beach to pick up cement that came in from China, and they brought it back. We brought it back in the powder form, and they converted it over to concrete by adding rocks and stuff to it. But
Wow.
that's
I
what
didn't know that.
that's what yep, that's what got
Yeah.
me into tankers.
Yeah. So then, um, to the job before LGT, weren't you at, were you at Air Gas? Is that where you were?
Yes, yep, air gas.
And
Uh,
that was the first time you
uh,
did cryogenics? Is that right?
yes, yes. Air gas was my exposure to cryogenics. Before air gas was a Grundite, which was a tanker company, but for chemicals, they did
Uh-huh.
a lot of acid and things like that. So I did that briefly, and then I was introduced to air gas because air gas was local, and I wanted to always try to get something local, and that's why I ended up getting on with air gas
Mm.
and
So when
cryogenics,
you
and introduced to the cryogenics world.
okay. So when you got hired on to Air Gas, did they have a training program?
No, you just you get locked in with another driver, which was the driver trainer, and he just
Okay.
worked with you until you got the hang of everything. And then they had a manager that would go out with you. Once your driver trainer said you were ready, the manager would go make a run with you to see if you how you did, and make sure you know how to do everything correctly and safely, and then he'll sign you off, and then you would be on your own.
Okay. So was it 2016 that you came over to LGT?
This year is my 10th year, so 10 years ago is the day
2014.
I came over. 2014. Okay.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
remember.
crazy.
You know, I was right, right around the beginning, Pam. I think I missed your start date by 2 years, so I was right there.
Yeah. And what made you
LGT.
decide to come over to LGT? What was the driving factor?
It was a guy that used to load in Pasadena at the Air Liquide. It was still Air Liquide at the time, but he worked for you, and he kept telling me, man, you need to come and be an owner operator. And of course, he was showing me his check stubs, and he was telling me, he was telling me all the good things, which are all true. He was telling me a lot of positive things that you could do by coming to work for LGT. And this wonderful lady named Pam that seems too good to be true. That at the
Mhm.
time, I found out it wasn't too good to be true. It was all true,
All right, all right. Enough of that. So, so you came over 2014 and was that the first time that you were an owner operator?
Yes, very first time.
Very
It
first
was
time.
yeah, it was like breaking a barrier. It was something I always wanted to do, but was kind of afraid to make that leap into
Yeah.
starting a business and becoming an owner operator. Yeah, and and it was terrifying, and it was rewarding because it's like once you bust through a bubble, you realize it's where you need to be. It's just something that it's kind of hard to put into words like that, Pam, but it was it was it was challenging to get to that point that I want to be that responsible for starting a business and working for myself. But once I did it, I loved it. I loved it.
You ran a lot though at the beginning.
I
You ran a
did.
lot. Yeah. I don't know, on the
Yep.
average, I'm gonna guess you ran 3,500 to 4,000 miles a week. Am I right?
Yeah, it was up there.
Yeah.
It was. It
Yeah.
was. I was loving the money, so I was enjoying it. I tried to my goal was to is top the amount of money I made one week to the next week. So every week I wanted to see if I could top my past week's income. So that
Yeah.
was my goal.
Yeah. You finally though, I think one of the things that I always am always interested in watching is watching the driver develop a relationship with a customer. And
Yes.
I'm fairly certain that you ran for air gas for 3 or 4 years out of Houston. Am I right? Am I remembering that right?
Uh, Out of Cleburne, I
Yeah.
was I was I did I worked for Air Gas for probably 5 years total, but in different locations. But I stayed on with Air Gas. I didn't get on with any other company other than Air Gas. So I didn't know about Lindy or any of the other companies for a while. I was strictly Air Gas. So and man, I started out in Covington, Georgia. That's where I first
Oh,
was
yeah.
stationed at with Air Gas. And then
Yeah.
I moved from there to Houston. I mean to what did I just say? Cleburne.
Cleaver.
And then I stayed in Cleburne for a couple of years.
Yeah. So what is it about cryogenics that you like? What is it? Because you've stayed in that the longest, right? At this point?
Yes. Yep. It's not hard work. Once you understand the how to operate everything properly, it's easy work. It's you don't it's not a lot of like in chemicals, you have to do all these different tests, different parts of the delivery process, and cryogenics is not like that. Once you get your CFA from the plant, once you get loaded, that's pretty much it with that. But chemicals is a lot more to it. So I like the fact that it's kind of simple. It's really simple. It's not dirty. It's not a dirty job, and you have limited contact with the customer. You're usually in and out, and I always like to be in and out, so you save time that way. So that's
Hmm.
those are the things I was attracted to.
So, um, I can't remember which year you got
Hmm.
out of the truck and became a driver trainer for LGT. Was it
Yeah,
was it 3, 4, 5 years ago? Somewhere around there, I'm guessing.
yeah. I think it's going on 4 years. Eric was my first trainee, and I asked Eric not too long ago how long he'd been with the company. And he said three some years. I was like, wow, I've been training that long, but because time just flies by. But
Is that Eric
I
Allen?
I
Is that
actually
was that your first one?
yes
Eric Allen? Yeah.
yes
Okay.
yes Eric Allen. He's still going strong. He's still making me proud. He's doing
Oh,
well.
he's awesome. He is so
Yes he
awesome. He
is.
does a
Yes
great
he
job.
is. Yep. Yep. He loved to run. He loved to make money. So
Yeah,
he's a good fit.
he is, but he's also a super nice guy, very conscientious and
Yeah.
hardworking.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yep. Absolutely. He's
So
he's
he was your
my
first
he's my
trainee
rock
then,
star.
huh? Yeah.
Yes, my very first one. Yes, ma'am.
So, so now that you've been a driver trainer for a while, and you think back to that first trainee, what what was it like? I mean, did you go out there knowing, oh, I know how to do this? Or did you go out there thinking, oh, I don't know how to teach somebody how to do this?
Well, I had a little bit of training experience with Air Key. So
Okay.
because just remember I was saying when you got hired on there, they hook you up with a driver trainee. So I end up being a driver trainee for Air Key. And I've trained several guys while I was there. So it was something I kind of was familiar with already, just in different in a different capacity.
Uh-huh. So did you approach it with a, um, because every driver trainer is different. you all teach the same
Yes,
things, but everybody has a different teaching style. So, how would
yes.
you describe your teaching style?
My teaching style is one of patience because I naturally for myself I'm someone who learns things slow because my mind wants to absorb too much information that it end up absorbing very little. So if I slow my mind down, I can absorb more information. And I notice a lot of guys are similar to my way of thinking. And if they're not, I speed up the way I train. But usually I start off and just breaking things down at the bare minimum, and I see how they're picking up on things, and if they're picking up on things at a fast pace, then I speed up. But if they're learning slow, then I take that approach mainly to with all my guys.
A lot of people ask me, what the training's like, and I always try to tell them um, it's there's no set time for training. Some people take, a week. Some people
Yeah,
take 5 weeks, right? I mean, wouldn't you agree?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
all based on the individual.
It's based on the individual, and you have to be open enough to know that everybody doesn't learn things the same way at the same pace. And if as a trainer, if you can adjust to knowing that everybody learns at different paces, it makes the job easier and less stressful because you're not expecting for everybody to learn everything at the exact same time. I think that's key to being successful as a trainer.
Yeah. So the very first trip that you take with a trainee, do you show them first and then have them put their hands on it, or how do you do that?
It all depends on the individual because some guys want to be hands on from at the starting block, and other guys they want to sit back and absorb you because they're visual and they lock in on watching you do it. So I start out wanting to show everybody the same thing. I want to be hands on and show them exactly how it's done. But then in other cases, some guys be like, "Well, let me do it." So I'll let them do it, and I just walk them through it that way. So that's why I say I just adjust to who it is I'm training. Usually, my preference is to show them the first time around, but that doesn't work for everybody. Some guys like to be hands on from day one,
Yeah. Do
and I'm good.
you?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think everybody's different. When I
Yeah.
was the training director on the airborne command post, I I I thought one of the biggest challenges of the job was adjusting to the trainee, and how the trainee learned,
Uh
because you have
huh.
to pay a lot of attention to that if you want that person to be
Yeah.
successful, you know.
Absolutely.
Some
Yes, and
like,
that's the key.
yeah, we had a we had a individual come in that actually a banker this morning, and I was showing her the back of the trailer, and I think sometimes when you open the back of the trailer on a cryogenic trailer, it's just over it's just overwhelming,
Yeah.
and their
It
eyes
is
get big, and
overwhelming.
they're like, and then you hear somebody say, well, all you got to do is follow the piping, and I'm like, follow what piping?
Yeah.
you know
Absolutely. I have guys. I have a number of the guys that I've trained said, man, the first day you open them back doors, I was thinking, man, ain't no way I'm gonna learn how to do this. But it, and I
yeah.
always consider it's a cloud. I call it going through the cloud stage. That's how I label it with the new drivers. You see everything in this big old cloud, and then over time that cloud just kind of fade away, and you start locking in on what's necessary, and it just becomes more clear over time. But yeah, they come in. I always say they always come in under that cloud, and but they're afraid because it's supposed to. They heard in this nitrogen is dangerous, and there's all this pressure, and then this sound is loud, this loud pitch. So the fear is there. They have to get past the fear, and the overwhelming of all the valves and the tubings and all of that. So it's just overwhelming initially, and eventually over time it fades out, and they start able to lock in on what it is they need to know how to do. That's
Yeah.
usually how it goes.
So what do you think the biggest
Yeah.
challenge is of training new drivers? What's the biggest challenge?
Um, what I'm noticing, and I think it might not just be in our industry, but this could be across the board. It's a lot of new guys. The young people that are coming in have a different mindset than the guys of our age, our generation. This generation of young people that's coming in nowadays, they have a lot more distractions than we used to. They have internet, cell phones, what have you. So I just think focus is a little different. They like things to happen immediately. They want to get rich overnight mentality type, environment that I'm noticing. And when they when they don't, they get disappointed. When reality setting in, then as a trainer, I get a lot of calls, and I have to encourage guys to stick it out. You came in under a false pretense, and now reality set in, and you have to adjust and make the best of it. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying though is as a driver trainer, you're not only teaching them piping, but in many cases you're teaching them how to be successful as a truck driver, whether they're company or owner operator.
Yes, in other aspects of life too, because we come with experience, not just in the trucking business, but in life period. So you create a relationship with the guys that we're training and gals, and you're sharing not only your experience in the trucking world, but you're sharing your experience in life. So you impact people in multiple ways, being in this position as a trainer.
So do you think that's the most rewarding aspect of being a trainer? Watching them be successful, or what is it for you?
I think that is it. I think it is just to build, for one, to build that relationship and to build that trust of knowing that I'm somebody that they can trust in, and they can learn from, and that's rewarding. And when you get a phone call after you release the guy, and months later they calling you and they still asking you for some advice about something that doesn't even pertain to the trucking industry. So that's a feel good that you made that kind of impact on somebody that they kind of look up to you for advice, for wisdom. So I like that.
Yeah. When you have a new driver that hasn't done this type of work before, what are the biggest safety concerns that you teach them about? I mean, what's the first and foremost in your mind?
Not to get so comfortable where you're complacent, and that's when you start making mistakes, when you think you got it. Never get so comfortable with what you're doing that you start slipping, and that's when mistakes
Mhm.
happen.
How do you teach them about what the liquid is? I mean, do you ever, I mean, when you open the back and you're loading the liquid, I mean, you never really see
Hmm.
it. You see the vapor, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
how do you teach them that stuff will burn you in a second, you know?
Well, and when they go through orientation, they watch a film about that part, how the liquid can burn you. And I teach about the cloud density. When it's more liquid, the cloud is a lot thicker, and that's I kind of teach them the difference between a thick cloud and then a vapor cloud, like a thin light cloud. And so I try to teach the difference between. That's how you're still dealing with liquid when that cloud is really thick and really heavy, compared to a light cloud, which is just vapor clouds. It's nothing that can hurt you with that. When they first look at it, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's product, but there is a difference.
Yeah. And so then when you teach somebody oxygen, right? Do you talk about asphalt and things like
Yeah.
that, pump leaking and, you know?
Yes, having good seals, making sure you're not leaking on anything that's combustible.
Hmm.
Let them know that product is, out of all the products, are the ones that can really can be hazardous. Yeah, we go into lot more details about not using the right tools when you're dealing with oxygen, paying attention to your surroundings, what you're loading near, and making sure people ain't coming into your space. You know,
Hmm.
making sure people are not smoking in your space, things like that. It's lot more intense, I would say, when you're dealing with oxygen.
What about CO2, right? CO2 is when you're teaching that,
Hmm.
that the pressure of it. I mean, how do they really
Yes,
see that? Sometimes, so I'm a visual learner. Some people are book
yes,
learners, some
me
people are
too.
visual learners, right?
Yes,
But to
yes.
understand, right, what 250 pounds of pressure looks like, how do you teach people that?
I think they get it when when you have too much pressure in the trailer to load at the plant for say air products, and they want you to blow it down. So when you're releasing that pressure, you know by the sound it's a lot of pressure in that trailer. So just by hearing that sound escaping, even when you have your earmuffs on, you know that you're dealing with a lot of pressure. And I think they get that part right away by just hearing that sound. I think it drives the point home on how much pressure you're dealing with inside your trailer.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I think about is have you had very many, and I don't think you have, but maybe you have drivers that have never pulled a tanker before?
Yes, yep. We have some guys that's new to the tanker industry. Yeah.
How that
You
stuff will
want to say
just
something
pull
else?
you over, right? It'll just, you get into a
Yep.
ditch, man, you can't get out, right?
Nope, turning curves too quick, going taking on ramps too quick, exit ramps too quick. Those things are no nos in the tanker industry, and that's something they learn real quick. That everything has to be slowed down, and especially in the winter months when you're dealing with ice and you got liquid on your back, and so
Hmm.
it it pays more to have a hazmat to be in the hazmat industry and with tankers because you're required to have a higher skill set, and that's being able to transport something moving on your back. Having that
Hmm.
liquid slashing around behind you. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not for everybody, but those who's able to acquire the skills, they do well in this industry. And hazmat, I think pays top pay in the transportation industry.
The other thing I was thinking about, and this happened recently too, is, I think sometimes people underestimate the physical demands of what we do. Those hoses are
Hmm.
heavy, right? And you got to drag those hoses
Yes.
out. You got to put the hoses back. You got to be able to reach all the valves and make sure the connections are solid. I mean, it's a lot more physically
Yeah.
demanding, I think, than people think.
And some of them they realize that right away too. That it is those hoses are going to be the biggest challenge for as anything physical is dealing with the hoses and opening up the valves and closing the valve. And because the customer got valves that need to be open and the trailer has valves that need to be open, and you have to do that twice on each delivery, and it can be overwhelming, on your wrist at times because you're constantly turning valves open and you're constantly closing valves. So that part is challenging for your wrist over time. But the hoses is challenging, especially after you made a delivery when they froze and you still got to stick them back in those tubes. So what I do, I always train my guys to make sure their hoses are stretched out. And for one, it keeps you from having to step over hoses more than you need to, and that's for safety purposes, especially in the wintertime, because you don't want your feet coming off the surface of the ground just in case it's froze. So when you have your hoses stretched out, you're not lifting up your feet off the ground no more than necessary. And the second reason for that is because when you have your hoses stretched out, after you deliver, they're frozen, they're stiff. So when you already have them stretched out, it's much more easier to stick them in those tubes when they're stretched out. So those are things I teach to make it a little bit
Yeah.
easier dealing with frozen hose.
Do you think that our work is mentally challenging too? Mm.
Compared to some of the other industries I have experience in, I would say once you learn it, it may be in the beginning because you're learning everything, but once you learn everything, it's really to me this less mental challenging than some of the other industries I had experience in. So I would
Mm.
say it's not as bad as some others, Pam.
I think one of the things about our industry that is different is the driver instructions, right? Just the
Yes.
matching up of the tank numbers and making sure you have the right C of A or C of C or the right hazmat document. It's just, I
Yes,
just think
that's
there's a
true.
lot to it. I think it's more than just, getting to a dock and backing up to a dock.
Well,
It's,
yeah, in that,
yeah,
yes, absolutely. Yeah, in that case, yes, you're right. You're right in that case. And I was speaking on once you became familiar with the
yeah,
necessary process, it becomes less stress. But you're right, and compared to like drive-ins, where like you say, all you open up is back, you open up the back doors and present them with the invoice, and that's it. Yeah, we're a lot more demanding than that for sure.
it's so
Yeah.
critical that they read those driver's instructions. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yes.
sure that when you're training, that's one of the things that,
Yes.
yeah.
Mhm. When
I've
they.
had people end up at the wrong location, deliver to the wrong tank,
Yep.
have medical versus not, industrial grade
Yep.
and all those things that you got to be on your it's not like, I mean, driving, you have to be on your toes, but your load, you have to be on your toes too.
Absolutely. And I emphasize
Mm.
that from day one is to make sure you read your paperwork thoroughly. Make sure you read your instructions because you might have special instructions per customer because this customer might have certain demands that your last customer didn't. And if you pull out of the plant and you hadn't read over your instructions on your paperwork, you can get somewhere and realize you're not prepared to make that delivery because for one, you don't that customer might need a seal, might need the trailer seal, and you're not sealed, so they're going to reject that. And they also might require a certain fitting that you have to bring with you from the plant, and all that is usually stated on your instructions. So I always emphasize that with the guys I train, make sure you read your paperwork before you leave, and because it's crucial. Some of them want
Mhm.
you to scale in before you offload, and others don't. Some of them might want you to scale in at a different location before you come to their plant because they don't have a scale, and all that'll be stated on the paperwork. And I emphasize, make sure you read your paperwork before you leave. So yeah, you're right. Those are crucial points that has to be
Yeah.
emphasized when you first start training someone new.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I think about when I think about training is, we do orientation and then we do the on the job training, but we can't cover every possible scenario, right? So, I
Right.
mean, we get the person to the point where they can understand and make a safe delivery, but they're going to come across things that they didn't in after they're certified that they never came across before. And that's where I think you guys provide the most value because as you build those relationships with those new drivers, they can call you. And
Mhm.
and I'm sure they do.
Yes, and they
Yeah.
do, and they do all day, every day.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
it is impossible to cover everything in orientation, and even during a course of training, you still there's some scenarios that you still don't run across until you're on your own. So once they do get on their own and they do run across something that they unfamiliar with, um, they feel my guys that I've trained always call in. We either figure it out over the phone or they FaceTime me, and I'm looking at the situation that they're seeing, and we figure it out that way. But we always figure it out, whatever it is that they dealing with that we hadn't addressed while they were in training. And they always know that they can call, and we're gonna work it out one way or another. We'll figure it out.
yeah. So if you were talking to somebody that was um, just starting their cryogenic career, what would be that advice
Hmm.
that you would give that person? What would be the one thing you want to tell that person over anything else?
For someone maybe new to the industry, for like hazmat, tankers, um, just know it's a different level of responsibility that you're taking on. You have to be way more alert than your average truck driver. The responsibility is greater, but the reward is much greater as well. I would think the reward is compatible to the responsibility that we have to endure. And far as coming on with LGT, you actually, me personally, think you made the best choice in the trucking industry to be in this environment because the company is so well ran, and the support is there for everyone. I think the support is amazing at this company. So I encourage everybody who's listening to this podcast to come work for LGT.
Well, you
But
must have told your brother that because he works here too, doesn't he?
yes, he works here, and he's thriving, and he's actually called on to do a lot of the training in his industry, which is ammonia. So
Yeah,
he helps out a lot with that, with training the new guys over there. So yeah,
yeah,
he's good. He's loving it.
yeah. So, last question, Bernard. Last question.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do
All
you
right.
have a favorite memory from your training that you want to share?
A favorite memory, huh? Uh,
Yeah, that's a tough
it's
one, isn't it?
it's so many. Yeah, that's a tough one because there's so many different parts that's that you can lock in on it. I would say one would be my highlight is taking someone that the first couple of weeks I just knew that person wasn't going to get it, but just never giving up, and eventually watching that person, just a light bulb goes on, and it's like they've been playing with you the whole time, and they just got it. And that right there makes my day. It's like, man, and I and one guy, I said, man, I just knew I was going to call Pam and tell her we got to get rid of you. And it seemed like you must have heard me or read my mind, because now you are off and running, and I'm so proud, that I got to experience that with you. So I've done that, and it taught me, show have that patience. That's why I started by saying, as a trainer, it's important that we have patience, because everybody learn at a different pace, and just to go through it with those guys that are super slow and seem like they need pep talks, which I have given guys pep talks on being focused and being attentive to what it is that they need to learn, and that we're not we're not going to be training forever. It has to be a point where you starting to show progress. And I've had that conversation with a few guys, and it seemed to resonate. And at the end of the day, they learned the requirements, and now they off and running on their own. So that's rewarding
Hmm.
to be able to know that we have been given a responsibility to train new drivers and to the best of our abilities, and so far we're doing it. I'm proud of the whole crew that you have hired as trainers, because we can lean on each other, and uh, we can discuss certain things that we do, that one person does to help the training process, and he share it with me, and then I can share something that I do that works for me, that they can use. And so the being able to communicate on different techniques to use to help train guys, I enjoy doing that as well. And I think that's a big part of the success of our training program.
Bernard, I want to thank you for your time today. I'm going to leave you with a little note here because your last comment about being proud of the guys that you've trained and the successes that they achieve.
Hmm.
I think that I don't think that they hear it often enough about how proud we are of them, but I think of that word proud, and I think about when I'm driving down the interstate, and on the other side, here comes a truck and a trailer, and it's got the LGT logo on the side of it, and I'm reaching through my window to see which truck number it is, and it's just the overwhelming
Yeah.
feeling of
Yes.
pride of
Yeah, it
belonging
is.
to this organization. And the driver that's driving that truck, I mean, he or she, right, does not
Yes.
understand
Yes.
how proud we are of them and their successes.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I
I
appreciate you.
totally agree.
And yeah.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart from starting this company. And to me, you set the bar so high on how a company should be ran, not only to grow and build a company, but how to treat the people that you have working for you. And I have never met anybody who has done things in the way that you have done things to show love and respect to the people that you have working for you. And I'm proud to say that I'm glad that I'm here working for LGT and you, Pam.
Thanks, Bernard. That wraps up the episode of Driver Stories. If you enjoyed the episode and want to hear more, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To learn more about LGT, please visit our website at lgttransport.com or connect with us on social media. See you on the next episode of Driver Stories.